I'll start with the headline. A recent controlled trial reported a 33% reduction in visceral fat for a fasting approach combined with protein pacing, compared with 14% in a calorie-matched continuous calorie restriction group. Those percentages are striking, and they deserve a careful look: what was done, why the results matter, and what we can reasonably learn from them. First, let's define visceral fat in plain language. It's the deep belly fat that surrounds organs like your liver and pancreas. Doctors worry about visceral fat because it's strongly linked to insulin resistance, heart disease, and other metabolic problems. Losing it often gives bigger health wins than losing the same amount of fat from other places. So, what did the study actually compare? Both groups consumed roughly the same total calories. The difference was how those calories were arranged. One group followed a structured fasting program paired with protein pacing, the fasting plus protein approach, while the other followed a steady, heart-healthy, calorie-restricted plan. In the trial, participants could choose a 36-hour fast once per week or a 60-hour fast once per week. During fasting days, the protocol sometimes allowed a small 300 to 400 calorie meal at night, part of the design to protect muscle and improve tolerability. On non-fasting days, people ate 4 evenly spaced meals with a relatively high protein target, often about 35% of calories from protein. The researchers controlled what participants ate on feeding days instead of telling them to eat whatever. That structure matters. Why might this combination work differently from classic calorie restriction? There are a few intuitive reasons. First, protein matters. Eating enough protein and spreading it across meals supports muscle preservation, and muscle helps burn calories even at rest. In this study, the fasting plus protein group preserved lean mass and sometimes increased their fat-free mass percentage compared with the steady diet group. Second, the timing of food changes hormones. Longer fasting windows lower insulin and encourage the body to burn stored fat for fuel. Pair those low insulin periods with protein-focused feeding, and you may get both fat-burning signals and muscle-sparing effects. Third, appetite control. Participants in the fasting plus protein group reported a roughly 17% drop in desire to eat, while the continuous calorie restriction group felt slightly hungrier. Less appetite helps with real-world adherence. If you're less tempted to snack, it's easier to stick to a plan. Fourth, structured feeding prevents binging on feast days. The study's feeding plan kept people from treating non-fasting days as a free-for-all. The result was more than just weight loss. Total abdominal fat and visceral fat dropped much more in the fasting plus protein group, even though weekly calories were similar. But let's be clear, this study is promising, not definitive. There are several important limitations. First, the trial was relatively short. We don't yet know if those visceral fat reductions last for a year or more. Second, the fasting group consumed more protein overall, which raises a key question. Are the benefits due to timing, to higher protein, or to both? Third, the study took place in a tightly controlled setting. Real life is messier, and adherence outside a research environment can differ. Fourth, some authors disclosed industry relationships. That doesn't automatically invalidate findings, but it underlines the need for independent replication. Still, the visceral fat result is important because visceral fat, more than total weight, predicts cardiometabolic risk like diabetes and cardiovascular disease. Picture 2 people eating the same weekly calories. One spreads those calories across many light and protein-light meals and snacks. The other follows structured fasting windows and protein-forward feeding. According to the trial, the second person might lose more visceral fat even if they both lose similar weight. There's a psychological angle too. Many participants reported that hunger eased over time and the plan became more manageable. That matters more than theory when it comes to sticking to a program. The hybrid protocol, long fasts with a small strategic meal, was designed to preserve muscle and make the fasts tolerable. It strikes a balance between absolute fasting and practical real-world application. So what's the practical takeaway? The study suggests meal timing and structure can matter as much as calories. A protein-forward feeding strategy combined with strategic fasting windows may especially target deep belly fat. That said, this approach demands discipline, and it's not suitable for everyone. People with certain medical conditions or on specific medications should not try prolonged fasts without medical supervision. If you want to read further, the main trial was published in Obesity, and companion microbiome and metabolomic analysis appeared in Nature Communications. Reviews in major journals described the metabolic switching that underpins fasting biology. Intermittent fasting studies vary widely in design. Some use daily time-restricted eating, others alternate day fasting. Results depend heavily on how fasts are paired with meal content and activity. What set this trial apart was the deliberate pairing of extended fasting windows with a structured, protein-rich feeding plan, and that combo appears to amplify effects on visceral fat. Remember, visceral fat and subcutaneous fat behave differently. Visceral fat sits deeper around organs and is more harmful metabolically. Reducing it tends to improve blood sugar and inflammation more than losing the same amount of superficial fat. The trial had used imaging tools to directly measure visceral fat rather than relying on scale weight alone, which makes the finding more convincing. Compared to simple daily 16-8 fasting, structured extended fasts paired with protein pacing may deliver larger short-term changes, but they can be harder to sustain without a practical feeding plan. The trial enrolled adults with excess weight and careful monitoring. That means the results are most applicable to similar people in settings. Real-world translation requires personalization. Many participants described a learning curve. The first cycles felt challenging, but over time they adapted. Hunger eased and the routine became manageable. Those human details matter for success. In short, this well-designed trial gives a compelling example that structured timing plus protein focus can produce large shifts in body composition, especially in visceral fat. It's encouraging, but not a universal cure. Keep an eye out for more research. Single studies are building blocks, not the final word. If you decide to experiment, do it thoughtfully and, when necessary, with medical guidance. Thanks for listening. If this episode sparked questions, drop them in the comments. Want a deeper dive into the study or a shorter social clip? Let me know.
Did you enjoy the video? Subscribe to our channel, Health and Wellness for All, for more tips and information. See you soon.